NFL is a game of matchups, but no matchup is one-on-one every play like a cornerback shadowing a star receiver. Whether it's Darrelle Revis, Patrick Peterson, or Jalen Ramsey, they are going to find your number one receiver and try to erase him every snap of the game. In 2019, Stephon Gilmore solidified himself as not only the best shadow corner in the NFL, but the best defender in the NFL, winning Defensive Player of the Year. He led the league with 6 interceptions, taking 2 back for touchdowns, and also led the league with 20 passes defended, while allowing just a 48 passer rating when targeted. He became the face of the Patriots' number 1 ranked defense, an absolute beast. But scrolling through his game logs, you can't help but notice his one blemish in Week 17, an AFC East showdown, Dolphins vs. Patriots. Gilmore versus DeVante Parker, who exploded for 8 catches, 137 yards, and led the Dolphins to a shocking upset win. This was not the Stephon Gilmore we were used to seeing. He had shut down Odell, he had shut down DeAndre Hopkins and Amari, so what went so wrong against Parker? As we transition to Week 1 of the 2020 season, we're going to get the answer. With Gilmore coming off the best defensive season in the league, and Parker coming off an explosive season of his own, the matchup will be defined by their preparation. The player who can use what he's learned from past matchups and weaponize that information to win the battle. When they played back in Week 2, and then again in Week 17, there were wildly different results. So Parker and Gilmore are studying what they did and the other did to try and figure out tendencies, tells, what worked, and what needs to be changed. When we look at their first matchup in Week 2, we can map out their adjustments from that matchup and how they will adjust in future matchups. The Dolphins were absolutely god-awful at the beginning of 2019. They lost to the Patriots 43-0, and DeVante Parker had an equally frustrating 0 catches on 7 targets. It's important to note that Gilmore actually shadowed Preston Williams most of this matchup, but he covered Parker enough that the Dolphins could set him up later in the season. Gilmore's strength rests in his ability to use the help he's provided within the coverage. Whether it be a post safety or a rat linebacker, he is a master at playing within the defensive structure, maintaining his positioning and leverage, and funneling receivers towards that help. His technique is impeccable, and his abilities to study a receiver and an offense's formations, routes, and tendencies are what set him apart. For example, Gilmore uses the receiver's split, meaning where he is on the field, to predict where he's going to run his route while still contextualizing his assignment within the defensive structure. The Patriots played man coverage the most of any team in the past 3 seasons, most often calling cover 1 rat, which is man coverage with a deep safety up top and a rat linebacker playing underneath. Gilmore knows as long as he stays outside of Parker, he can funnel him towards either of those 2 players. If Parker releases outside, then Gilmore is on an island and it turns into straight one-on-one. But since Parker reduces his split inside the numbers, Gilmore assumes he's going to attack across the field. As Parker releases inside, Gilmore maintains outside leverage, but starts closing the space, anticipating the shallow cross. Parker needs to create more space for his route, so he pushes vertical and uses a stair-step technique, which is a step upfield to keep Gilmore outside of him, then break in. He wants Gilmore to match his vertical angle, so Gilmore will carry upfield. And usually, corners are scared of a stud like Parker threatening deep. But because Gilmore trusts Devin McCourty over top, trusts his technique, and trusts his talent, he can be ultra aggressive undercutting Parker's route and beating him to the spot. Several of Gilmore's biggest plays came in this coverage defending this type of route. He uses all his little tricks and cues to figure out where Parker is headed, then identifies that spot and beats him to it. So when Parker runs another climb route nearly identical to the play before, he has that route in the back of his mind and takes advantage. Though Parker is now in the slot instead of outside, he's still in a reduced split inside the numbers, and again, again, the Patriots are in cover 1 rat. The moment Parker releases inside of Gilmore, he knows he has help underneath and over the top. You can see Parker use a hesitation release, but Gilmore is excellent at maintaining his leverage to funnel Parker back towards his help. Parker doesn't release underneath like the play before, but instead pushes deeper and towards the middle of the field. He again uses the stair step to try and create room to attack all this open space. But Gilmore isn't worried about anything vertical, since once again McCourty is sitting deep. Plus, when Parker pushes vertical, he isn't committed hard all the way upfield. He's still kinda drifting inside. The moment Parker begins to stair step, Gilmore, not fooled at all, triggers underneath and undercuts the route to create a turnover. Parker finished the game without a catch, and the Dolphins were utterly blown the hell out. But they knew later in the season they could take this film and use what happened to their advantage. Fast forward to week 17, the Finns had dramatically improved since their first several weeks, but were still eliminated from the playoffs at 5-10. The Patriots, however, had clinched a spot, but had to win this game to secure the 2 seed and a critical first round bye. A game with massive playoff implications against the Dolphins in Foxborough, the team they had already ripped to shreds 43-0. With the Pats coming in as 14-point favorites, Belichick couldn't help but give the tiniest of minuscule smiles. His plan was to rely on man coverage like they had all season, and use Gilmore to shadow Parker since Preston Williams was now injured. It was a good plan. In the first matchup, the Patriots played man 51% of the time, and in this game, they did so 78%. The game plan was easy. Gilmore will shadow Parker and shut him down, leaving nobody else to burn the defense. But Parker said, "I don't think so." In the first quarter, the Patriots called one of their cover 0 blitzes, which they've been using all season long. Cover 0 is man coverage on each receiver with no safety help, no linebacker help, and usually rushing 6 or more defenders. I say usually because the Patriots scheme their cover 0 different than most teams. They use what's called a rain check. They call this exclusively against empty formations, since they know when the offense has just 5 blockers, it's impossible to defend against 6 rushers. The downfall of cover 0 is how vulnerable your coverage is on the back end. It's all one-on-one matchups, and if you miss a tackle, it's going for 6. So to provide coverage help while bringing the house, the Patriots coach the pass rushers to fall back if they're blocked. Look how Hightower and Collins begin to rush, but back off. They're blocked anyways by a bigger lineman, who now is too late to block the next rusher over. When the quarterback sees a free rusher coming, he often tries to find his hot receiver, who is running a shortened route into the void vacated by the rusher. Ryan Fitzpatrick sees the free rusher coming and barely finds Albert Wilson on the hot route, which is made incredibly difficult by the linebackers falling back. So what does this have to do with Gilmore? Well, because he is one of the smartest players on the field, he understands his own assignment and the team's play call, as well as how the offense wants to attack it. When they check terrain, he knows he's in man coverage with no help, and since there's a free rusher, the ball is going to come out fast. He also knows, based on the Dolphins' tendencies in empty, they love running 2 slants to the boundary. When they give this look with tight end Mike Gesicki a foot off the line and the other 4 receivers spread out, they like to run stick lion. Stick being Gesicki's route with a flat and a go, while lion is double slants. With Gilmore anticipating lion, he takes 1 step and quickly triggers on the slant. But although he's in man coverage, he isn't watching Parker like normal. He's watching Fitzpatrick. He knows there's only a handful of things Fitz can do with a free runner in his face, so he wants to see how he reacts. He has his pre-snap read and wants to identify post-snap if it matches up. So when he sees Fitz not firing off the line, he knows he can come down hard on the slant. A few minutes later, the Dolphins go back into empty from an identical formation, hoping to trigger the Patriots back into their rain check. They know if they give Gilmore the same exact look, it'll grab his attention. He sees the formation, knows they're checking to rain, and the ball is coming out hot. So when the play starts, he again watches Fitz and is ready to break on Lyon. But Lyon never comes. Parker doesn't even try to fake inside. He just runs straight down the field and is wide open. From the end zone angle, we see what looks like the same formation with Gesicki again in a 2-point stance and a foot off the line, but this is all to deceive the Patriots. The offensive line full slides to their left to pick up the zero blitz, and Gesicki feints like he's blocking, which holds the outside rush just long enough. Plus, look at Fitzpatrick. He knows Gilmore is waiting on the slant and watching his movement, so he gives the slightest pump fake to hold him just a step, then beats him over the top. The Patriots blitzed Fitzpatrick 21 times, but only pressured him on 5 snaps. The Finns kept scheming and attacking the Patriots' aggressive defense, forcing them to play more passively. They know Gilmore's game relies heavily on playing within his leverage and technique, so doing things like motioning Parker at the snap prevented him from coming set, using his leverage, and playing within structure. Here the Pats are playing one rat again, and Gilmore would usually start with outside leverage to force Parker back inside, but with DeVante moving as the ball is snapped, he can't go through his usual pre-snap routine and is caught off balance. He flips his hips way earlier than he normally would, and Parker makes him double speed turn as he attacks his blind spot and makes him spin around. The game remained close into the fourth quarter, and with just 4 minutes left, the Dolphins found themselves down 24-20, starting a drive from their own 25. Each completion was like a gut punch to every fan in the stadium. At the 2-minute warning, the offense sat at their own 45. Fitzmagic and the Dolphins needed a big play, so they turned to DeVante Parker. Let's remember at the beginning of the episode how Parker ran shallow or climb routes when he reduced his split 1 yard inside the numbers. Well, that's exactly where he lines up. Gilmore is leveraged heavily outside and has safety help over the top. He's expecting things to go down just like week 2, when Parker released inside and he funneled him to the safety. But this is all an elaborate setup by the Dolphins. Parker knows Gilmore is anticipating him going inside, so he uses a hesitation double release to fool him. The hesitation allows Parker to sneakily attack Gilmore's leverage and close the space. Usually on an in-breaking route, the receiver will use a single release to jab outside, then shoot back in, and you can see the first step shifts Gilmore that way just slightly. As Parker's executing the last part of the double, Gilmore is still reacting to the single and is caught off balance. You can tell his pre-snap plan was to use a catch technique, where Parker releases, then after, Gilmore jams him. But Parker creates so much room off the line that Gilmore's punch completely misses him. Watch Parker push vertically upfield. He does this to maintain enough room towards the sideline for the fade. If he released immediately into the fade, Gilmore could close off the space to the sideline and limit the area where Fitzpatrick has to throw. So by pushing vertically, he forces Gilmore to match. He manages to catch up and gets in phase with Parker, meaning he is close enough that he can turn his head and locate the ball. But by that time, the ball is up and perfectly placed back shoulder. Parker does superstar things and high points 10 feet in the air. The Dolphins finished the drive with a touchdown and won the game, forcing the Pats to instead play in the wild card and get upset by the Titans. The good news for both teams, 2020 is a new year. The Patriots can begin their redemption tour, and the Dolphins can try and establish themselves as a viable threat. Week 1 is a fresh fresh opportunity for both teams to prove themselves all over again. And it's a chance for Gilmore and Parker to battle it out mano-a-mano. They haven't just been studying the film we watched today, they've made it a religion, viewed over and over and over again since January, looking, searching, seeking to gain even the tiniest edge to win. Gilmore is a stud, defensive player of the year, but DeVante Parker's breakout 2019 and Week 17 performance makes this a fascinating battle to watch. In football, matchups are won and they are lost, but it's often unclear who definitively defeated who. When Gilmore shadows Parker on every blade of grass up and down the field, nobody will be able to hide. Nobody will shy away. The biggest question this Sunday, who will be prepared?